Xli'a raised a tentacle in confusion. In the short span of time humans had been a part of the galactic community, the Deathworlders had often surprised other GC species. But unlike other times, this didn't seem to have a logical explanation. He had been sent to the human homeworld of Earth as part of a cultural exchange team, and his human counterparts on Iliran were probably similarly confused by Iliran culture. But of all the strange traditions from Burning Man to Paintball couldn't compare to what stood before him. Clad in what his scanner detected as fireproof, brown overalls with reflective strips on it, was a human figure. Fist extended outwards with his thumb facing up, and a predatory display of teeth that he had been taught was a human gesture of friendliness. It was only a poster, but the text was what confused him. Hephaestus Mk2, protecting the firefighters of tomorrow, today. What in the 7 moons of Tren warranted the creation of soldiers to fight flames? He shook his head. He guessed that having an atmosphere with an industrial-grade oxidizer as a major element had something to do with it. Still, if there were soldiers, there was an enemy. And this was something native to Earth. He shuddered to think that pre-industrial human would have had to deal with creatures of combustion. As he was pondering how life could have evolved in so many directions on Earth, an alarm sounded, and he realized that the building right next to him had caught on fire, and civilians were pouring out of it onto the streets. How did one of these creatures just appear in the middle of a megacity? Weren't there reserves where animals on Earth could live apart from humans? His respiration increased in pace. He wasn't used to fire on his pure nitrogen world. This was a form of terror he had never known. Then, a red VTOL landed in the street. It had tanks of some kind on both sides, and what seemed to be a turret emplacement on both sides. It had 4 thrusters that were keeping it aloft. When it landed, a team of roughly 20 human men and women disembarked, carrying an assortment of weapons and tools and rushing towards the flaming doorway. He stepped forward, eager to get information about the enemy they were facing, but was quickly pushed aside by a human carrying some sort of stick with a sharpened slab of steel on its end. "Please stand back, civilian. This area is not safe." Xli'a couldn't tell if he was speaking to a man or a woman, their mask filtering out such sounds. And the gear they were wearing didn't leave any clues as to that particular mystery either. He did as he was told, though, and stood back so that the firefighters could do their job. He was curious what weapons the humans would use to combat a combustive entity on a world where the very air itself was fuel. The team marched into the inferno, unflinching. The 5 at the back ran back to the VTOL and either mounted the turret apparatus or pulled a tube mechanism from its side. And they sprayed it with an industrial solvent that, once again, was extremely common on Earth and extremely dangerous to him. He took a few steps back, fearing any amount of exposure from the liquid. So they were restricting its airflow by smothering it with a liquid. Primitive but effective. He still couldn't understand why they'd need soldiers for the job, though, since the creature didn't seem to be fighting back in any way. Some of the firefighters ran out of the building, escorting civilians on their way out. Then Xli'a saw one of them walk out with a human youngling in their arms. She hadn't survived the amount of carbon dioxide in the building. They tried in vain to save her, but to no avail. That was when Xli'a realized why firefighters existed. They weren't trained to fight the creatures of Earth, for that was a hunter's job. They were trained to fight the elements themselves. On a death world, it's not just flora and fauna trying to kill you. It's the environment itself, and Earth was cursed with an atmosphere from hell. They were trained to walk through an inferno to save the innocent. They were trained to save lives on their unfortunate birthplace. They were soldiers in an unending war against one of the fundamental processes of their world. The Deathworlders fought fire and they were winning.